I don't want no oil a-spoiling my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things a-creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes!
Good morning, Toledo, and good afternoon, Columbus. Good evening, Bowling Green, and hello to everyone on the internet, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Joe DeMare, and I'm here with my incredible co-host,
Rebecca Wood.
Yes, and Rebecca and I are going to craft another excellent hour of radio called For a Green Future. For a Green Future is a show where we talk about ecology and the environment. And we talk about it in the ways that it affects you, your wealth, your health, your happiness, the wealth and health and happiness of your friends and your families and your co-workers and the trees and the grass and the flowers and the bees and everyone and everything. Because, like it or not, all of us are wrapped up together on this wonderful planet called Earth.
And all the little sort of shrubby things which might be trying to grow on your monoculture lawn.
Yes.
If you're the sort of person who who is a little lax about the the monoculture lawn, doesn't really make a science of it.
Yeah. Well, and some of those little shrubby things are kind of nice, like the wild raspberries, so they pop up. I really enjoy that. But yep, all those plants and animals and insects and bacteria. And
we got either wild raspberries or fake raspberries growing in our backyard again.
Nice.
At least 2 little tiny berries that don't taste like much.
So we have a great show lined up for you today. We're going to chat for another 10 minutes or so here. And then we have an interview with a wonderful woman named Colette from an organization called Stand Up for Science. And last week we reported on the fact that the EPA 500, actually it's more than 600 employees of the EPA sent a letter to the EPA Director Lee Zeldin basically telling him to stop lying. And the letter was released through her organization. And so we got a nice interview with her talking about the whole situation there.
Plus, that's a cool name because it's a French writer, Colette.
Colette? Oh,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
She was quite infamous there.
She was.
All right. Then we hear from our wonderful advertisers and patrons, to whom we are eternally grateful. And Rebecca, then it's your turn. And what will you be talking about today?
I'm going to talk about purslane.
Purslane. Ah, yes. Or as the farmers who were my neighbors used to call it a pusley.
Oh, okay. Pusley.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were not fond of purslane. So.
Oh, yeah. Some people, they think it's a weed.
Okay. And then ecological news from around the world. And we have
it does bad things to people's farm fields, too.
Oh, purslane?
If they're not careful. Yeah, that's one of the things about it.
Pusley.
It can be, you chop it up and it can regrow from the fragments, which means it's till resistant.
Yes.
Farmers do not care for it.
It's a very intense plant. So, okay, and that's it. And hopefully at some point we'll hear from you. Call in, please, at 877-909-1007. That's 877-909-1007 about any ecological or environmental topic or story that has caught your eye this past week. And speaking of things catching your attention, I hadn't planned to talk about this, but on the way in, I was listening to C-SPAN, which is one of the few call-in programs that we still have nationally that have broad range of people that call in because they make it a point to, get the whole spectrum of responses on their call-in shows, which is great. And I would love to do that. Of course, I need to have more than one caller a week to get a spectrum. So please help me do that at 877-909-1007. But today's topic, they were interviewing a journalist who talks about environmental issues and specifically about global warming issues. And they were talking about the Texas disaster, the horrible loss of life there in Texas with that last flood. And people who were calling in on the conservative line had the same exact thing. It's like they were scripted. It's like they got a memo saying, okay, this is our spin on this topic. And the spin was that, yes, global warming is real. So they finally admitted that, okay, after decades of denial. But something about this storm particularly has kind of shut that avenue off for them. It's like they can't deny it anymore after losing over 100 people in a unprecedented flood. But then they say, but there's no way it's human related. There's no way we could be affecting the atmosphere with carbon dioxide. That's crazy. If you think we're powerful enough to affect the atmosphere, you're insane. And of course, we are.
Yeah.
We are affecting the atmosphere. And so they were saying, don't try to put.
Have you heard the super crazy thing about how it's actually liberals deliberately seeded the clouds to make the flood in Texas?
I did hear that conspiracy theory.
So
yes.
apparently we can affect the atmosphere when we want to, but
we can't when
yeah,
it would
but
actually
it's the whole
help the
planet.
atmosphere.
We can't do it by accident.
Right. And so, right, they argue for both directions, and it doesn't matter to them that their arguments actually conflict with each other.
Yeah.
Because, but the important thing for us to remember is the truth is, A, global warming is human-caused. There's no denying that. And so, B, if we caused global warming, humans, then we can help mitigate it. We can stop causing it. We can get rid of the basic input of the carbon and the methane. And the way we do that is we switch technologies. We've switched technologies before. I mean, our whole economy used to be coal powered. Before that, it was horse powered, and we've done this before as a society, and we can do it again. And the whole point of For a Green Future is that once we do it, things will be better.
Yes.
Energy will be cheaper. Air will be clearer. People will get sick less often, and we will stop this cycle. What is it that's happening, Rebecca?
Is it a positive feedback loop?
As a matter of fact, it is. Yes, that we put carbon in the air, that causes heating. The heating puts more carbon in the air.
I can only remember
that
the
causes
answer
more
to
heating.
one question, but it's the answer to a lot of questions. So
Yes.
I have the right answer.
Yes, it is.
On the show.
And so, one of the things that the primed, that these conservative climate deniers were making is that it is that we do need to do resilience. We need to increase our, infrastructure's ability to handle these giant storms because they finally admit they're coming and they're going to get worse and they're not going to stop. The thing is, the fact that we're in a positive feedback loop, unfortunately, means we won't be able to increase the strength of our infrastructure enough, no matter how much we do it, because the increased storms, as long as we keep putting more carbon in the air, the increased hot weather events, the increased storms, those things will overwhelm whatever reinforced infrastructure we create. And so, bad on them, basically, for trying to talk people out of doing anything. They were saying, don't put solar panels on your roof, don't get electric cars. Luckily, more and more people are ignoring them and actually trying to do something, and that's really necessary. So what I did plan to talk about today was my experience over the past couple days. I went back to Western New York, where I was born and where most of my family still is, for my family reunion, which is very nice, very pleasant event. And Western New York, Buffalo, Rochester, right there, is kind of a unique area in terms of global warming, because since it is immediately downwind of Lake Erie, as Lake Erie evaporates, the global warming projections, well, this is one reason some people call it climate change, that little strip, that little arc right at the end of the lake is actually getting cooler because the lake keeps evaporating. And they had a really cold winter with lots and lots of snow because the lake did not freeze over. And so they just kept getting piles and piles of
Yep.
lake effect snow. But the fact that this is getting a cooler area is actually finally, the wealthy people have noticed this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And I actually, one of the really nice things I was able to do, I own some land out in that direction. I have 6 acres of land that I've allowed to go wild. And my son and I went and explored it this week. And it's when we were there on Saturday, and it is just beautiful. That there used to be a pond, right? But now that's a huge cattail marsh, not a single
Ooh.
Phragmites in sight, and lots of red-winged blackbirds. And I got to show him the edible part of the cattail plant, and it was great. And the whole area there's tracks all over the place, animal tracks all over the place, deer, what looked like maybe badger, just some nice, it's really beautiful. I'm happy with the way it turned out. But I keep getting these letters from land speculators.
Ooh, they want your land.
Yes, they do. And I've been getting these letters for a while. But what's happened in the last year is the offers have more than doubled.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. The offers I was getting last year, this year are like double and sometimes almost triple what they were last year. And that's because there's signs that the wealthy are trying to hedge their bets by buying property out there in that little crescent, that little area that's actually going to get cooler. And another sign of this was that this little pizza place, Western New York pizza is the best in the world, by the way. But so we ordered some pizza and wings. And remember, Western New York is where wings were invented. So also the best
Ooh,
wings in the world.
Buffalo wings.
Yes, exactly. Although we just call them chicken wings in
Right.
Buffalo.
Yeah,
But
that makes sense.
I asked, I put in the order, I asked for a special. And they said, okay, yeah, it was like a pizza and wing, 20 wings, and plus a 2-liter pop, whatever. But when I got to the restaurant, I didn't ask the price. And when I got to the restaurant, I saw on the chalkboard they had, the specials listed, but again, no prices. And when the pizza finally came, it was $50
Oh, my
for
Lord.
a pizza and wings. And it's like, that is a sure sign of gentrification.
Yeah, I think so.
And I should have been tipped off when we pulled up. There was, in front of the place was this guy with this really expensive looking Corvette convertible carrying a pizza out. And so this is what's happening.
Oh, my Lord.
My area is in the crosshairs of the really rich people that want to buy up that last cool spot in North America where they can. And the first 2 days we were there, it really was wonderful. It's been so hot and muggy here. It was really great. Thursday and Friday, the temperature was beautiful. It was not humid. We were just outside enjoying it. And one thing they are doing, though, is they're getting solar farms out there. So a lot of people are unhappy about that because they've bought into the propaganda that somehow solar farms are evil. But overall, the whole region is getting more and more beautiful because the trees are getting bigger. People in Western New York don't have this idea that if you own some land, you need to keep it cleared and mowed all the time. They let it go wild. And so it's a beautiful place. There's lots of critters around. Solar farms are going in, but unfortunately now the prices are going up. And there was just one other little environmental thing I wanted to note. Friday night, the one thing they do have there, unfortunately, agriculture is still the main driver of the economy there. They do have a fair number of these CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding organizations or operations. And there's one, it's about 5 miles from my mother's house. And unfortunately, I had my second story window open to cool down, but the odors from the CAFO had blown that way and they were so strong, I had to close the windows because,
Yep.
yeah. And it's another reminder that this is all tied in together, because the CAFOs, they put out tons and tons of manure, sewage essentially, and that decomposes and puts out methane into the atmosphere, and that worsens global warming. And of course, they're getting fed. 90% of our agriculture is to raise corn to feed the cows that are in CAFOs, and so that puts tons and tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So all these things are connected, and so if we start looking at everything economically and ecologically from an ecological perspective, things are going to smell better. Literally,
Yeah.
we will have less of these CAFOs. And
I being from small towns, and sometimes we had a house out in the country, even remember what it's like to be downwind from even a regular pig farm. It's
Yeah.
not good.
no,
And
Yeah.
these are much bigger.
they are. They're getting worse because the economics force more concentration, not less. So
Yeah.
the solution to that is regulation, which unfortunately at this time we're not. we're falling behind the rest of the world in our ability to do that. And one of the reasons we're falling behind the world is because those people in charge of our regulators, like the Environmental Protection Agency, are calling into question the very basic science behind the regulations. So if you deny the fact that mercury is poisonous, then you're going to say we don't need any mercury regulation, because I'm not admitting mercury is poisonous. We could just dump that and not hurt anybody or anything. And of course, that's completely false, but that's exactly what's happening nationwide. And that is the topic of my interview with Colette. So let's go to that interview now. Well, hello and welcome to For a Green Future. Could you please share with us your name and who you're with?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Colette Delawalla, and I am the executive director and founder of Stand Up for Science.
Okay. And the reason we asked you on today is because of this letter that the EPA employees sent to Lee Zeldin. Yeah, it's a pretty dramatic thing to have employees send their boss a letter like this. So your organization is sort of the go-to for people who want to read this letter and see it and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for doing that service.
It's a privilege.
So I really wanted to sort of focus on the letter itself. The employees talk about 5 different things specifically that Zeldin has done to the organization, and I thought we might touch on each of them. And the first one is undermining the public trust. So what do they mean when they say that's what he's doing?
Well, I think that there is this strong view amongst EPA employees, which number into the thousands and are diverse across, all areas of the country. EPA employees represent just an exceptionally diverse range of federal employees, right? So they're, unlike other agencies, scientific agencies, are represented across all regions of the United States. And I think that really lends itself well to this nonpartisan approach that is very important to EPA employees. It is very important that we understand that the science is what it is, the data are what they are. And I think this undermining of public trust piece really gets at this, the way that Zeldin has come in and said things that are decidedly bipartisan, and decidedly, lean rather right, which is just really against the way that the EPA has approached its mission, since the 70s.
Did you mean to say decidedly partisan?
Yes, decidedly partisan. I'm sorry. Decidedly partisan.
Mm-hmm. I think it's fair to say there are Republicans working at the EPA, correct?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not, I circle back to this idea pretty regularly. It doesn't matter who you voted for. nobody wants lead pipes in their house. This is not like oh, you voted for Donald Trump, you must really enjoy lead pipes in your house. Like we all kind of understand that asbestos is a bad thing. And so yeah, I mean, I think that it is absolutely fair to say that the people who are testing our water to make sure that we're safe and, across the United States, I don't think that we can make assumptions about who they voted for.
Mhm. Well, it's interesting you mentioned the asbestos because the second point of the letter is
Yes.
that he's accused of ignoring scientific consensus to benefit polluters. And I
Yeah.
think maybe one of the best examples of that is the fact that the EPA, Zeldin is ordering the EPA to look at asbestos again, at deregulating asbestos.
I I find this so astounding. I grew up on the commercials. I can almost like say it verbatim. If you or a loved one has been exposed to asbestos and experiences mesothelioma, call this number so that you can access whatever funds to help with your healthcare. Like there is a mesothelioma trust fund that is available to help people who were exposed to asbestos I mean, on the job, in their homes, whatever. And so I just find this astounding because the only people that increasing exposure to these harmful chemicals, to, asbestos, to mercury, to PFAS forever chemicals, the only people who benefit from those are the ones who make, produce, and profit off of those, you know, those various chemicals, the various resources. Nobody benefits from exposure to asbestos. The American public does not benefit from exposure to PFAS. Like these things cause cancer and we know it. So I mean, it's very obvious to me that the reason for this is explicitly to benefit people's pocketbooks.
And a very small percentage of the people.
Yes, yes, of course. The CEOs who, again, who make the asbestos, who work through getting that into buildings.
And just talk a little bit more about the concept of scientific consensus, because I mean, you could find a scientist or two who
Sure. Who will,
contradict almost any
yeah. I
established or accepted fact, but we can still say there are facts, right? We can
Sure.
reach conclusions through science.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one very explicit thing that we're seeing with the Trump administration is that they fundamentally misunderstand that science is this iterative and cumulative process, that science is a process, and that we do the research that we do to build consensus, right? So that way we do have a better understanding of when something is a 50-50, shot versus when maybe across 100 studies on whether asbestos causes cancer. We've got 3 that say that they didn't find that in their data, but we've got 97 who say that they found that. And so I think that is the importance of really testing these assumptions very broadly, making sure that, things that these studies generalize. And we have reached consensus. We've reached consensus about greenhouse gases causing climate change. We've reached consensus about mercury poisoning being bad. Like we've reached consensus about PFAS causing cancer and that they are forever chemicals. They do not go away. You cannot clear them out of your system. And so that is the purpose. There's not one study that proves anything. It is this cumulative process of decades of work from lots of different people that help us reach these conclusions.
Number 3, reversing the EPA's progress on America's most vulnerable and protecting America's most vulnerable communities.
Yeah, I mean, this is again to this point about scientific consensus. I don't see Lee Zeldin building a house next to a chemical plant. If
Or an
he,
asbestos plant.
yeah, right. Like, and at least that's not, I don't see that that's, where he's living. We see that the most poor and vulnerable members of our society are the ones who have the greatest exposure to these harmful chemicals. And it's because the people with money aren't buying the land or moving into the houses that are right next to, these plants that are next to these, in Flint, Michigan, right? We don't see that happening in wealthy parts of town. And so this is one area where we know that there is a proportion of Americans who are living in areas where they experience greater exposure to these harmful cancer-causing toxins. And because we know that, we have a duty to fix it. Like, we know better, so we should do better. And they have fully dismantled the environmental justice programs at the EPA that work to tackle these health disparities.
Number 4, this one kind of shocked me, dismantling the Office of Research and Development. You mentioned scientific consensus. How can we know anything if we don't research it, if we don't try to
Yeah.
find information about it?
The other thing that is really insidious about this dismantling is not just that they're trying to pull down the office, it's that they want to restructure it in such a way that this office will now be under the umbrella of a political appointee. And so because of that, it would allow a greater degree of political interference in what science happens, what science gets presented as a part of building the consensus, what questions we're allowed to ask. And so, yeah, I mean, to the point about scientific consensus, like, in America, we have not politicized science. We have not, we have allowed an ecosystem for people, for scientists to ask questions and to learn, to allow the data to be what they are. And, as complicated as it may be sometimes, to share that information. And this is challenging because this really sticks a real wrench in this process of, like, interference-free scientific investigation.
And number 5, the last one, promoting a culture of fear, forcing staff to choose between their livelihood and well-being. So this,
Yeah, I mean, here's what I will say about this. And I mean, they proved this point. The EPA proved this point by placing 139 of their employees who signed this letter publicly on administrative leave, which administrative leave is explicitly done when a person is seen as a danger to the workplace. So they're saying that these employees are a danger to the workplace, and they were walked out, they were escorted out of their buildings when they were placed on leave and placed under disciplinary investigation. And so that's what the employees who are brave enough to stand up and say, hey, nobody benefits from more exposure to asbestos. That's what they have done, which has a scientific consensus. That is what EPA has done to its employees who stood up and said, you're doing things that go against our mission and go against our scientific consensus. And so, yeah, I would say that we have evidence that the EPA is under Lee Zeldin promoting a culture of fear and forcing staff to choose between their livelihood and their well-being.
it was over 600, it was 620 who signed it. Most signed it anonymously, but it was
Actually, it was about 50-50. But the people who were pulled into in the investigations, because we allowed it to stay open for people to continue to sign even after the letter was sent to the administrator Zeldin, there were people who signed publicly thereafter, and it seems like those people were not placed on leave. Because of that, we did make the executive decision to pull down the public list because we didn't want to expose anybody further to retaliation. So that was our approach, but it was about 50-50.
Mhm. And your organization is sort of acting as the filter through which this is being shared with the public.
That's right. Yeah. It was really a privilege that we were able to host such a letter, that, we had the opportunity to help EPAers, stand up and take this really brave and courageous step, right? Like they're blowing the whistle. They're saying that this is really bad for the American public. It's bad to politicize science. It's bad to increase our exposure to these toxins. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the world of them. I think they're incredibly brave. It, it really hits me square in the chest that they have been placed on leave and that 139 of them like don't know if they're going to be fired for standing up for what's right in America, where we're supposed to allow people to do that.
So I've been looking for some sort of reaction from Lee Zeldin to these letters, and he actually has a web page dedicated to communication with EPA employees. I couldn't find anything on there except his resume. So I was looking on his YouTubes, and the last YouTube thing he posted, just yesterday, is announcing that the EPA is going to go full on investigative into contrails and geoengineering. So you mentioned before that we haven't politicized science in the US in the past, but that seems pretty much like sort of pandering to conspiracy theorists to me.
I mean, yeah, the next thing that we're going to be doing is sitting here asking ourselves if birds are real. I mean, I we have real, legitimate problems that need to be addressed. We have a dire situation on our hands with regard to climate change. Where I live in Georgia, just earlier this year, there was a fire at a pool chemical plant. And I live about 40 miles away from that plant. And I walked outside for 3 days and my eyes were burning. There were birds dropping dead out of the sky. I mean, like, it was a horrible situation. And I make that point to say that, like, we have very legitimate problems in the United States with regard to, making sure that our air and water and land are safe and clean. And for the administrator of the EPA to be platforming gas, to be platforming AI that uses such extreme amounts of energy that it is like driving further climate change, and to not be paying attention and to be platforming asbestos. Like, I mean, that is like villain stuff. I just, what are we doing? What are we doing here?
Well, two things. You want to tell us a little bit more just about your organization?
Sure.
How long have you folks been around, and what do you do?
So Stand Up for Science, we started in February of 2025. So early February 2025, we hosted over 130 rallies on March 7th across the United States in defense of science. We're standing up for science. I consider us an activist group. We're a 501c4. We're actively trying to fight this administration's war on science, right? We're seeing it at all levels. And I think it is really fair to say that, generally speaking, tyrannical governments first target and attack the institutions that provide truth to their populace. And so I think that that's why we're seeing the war on science. It's typical to see that in, governments that are a little bit more tyrannical when they begin. I think that's also why we're seeing the attacks on universities. And so I'm a red-blooded American, and I really believe in free speech and I really believe in science. I'm a clinical psychology PhD candidate. So this is really personal for me. I just want to be able to do my research. So yeah, that's why we're doing it. We stand up for science.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Just want to encourage people. We do have a newsletter and, email communications that we send out. So you can head over to standupforscience.net and sign up for those. And also please add your name to this letter in support of the EPA employees who did bravely speak out. We are asking for public signatories. So yeah, really encourage people to sign on.
That was our interview. And I thought that was a really good interview. I love Colette's radio voice. She's so nice and clear. And yeah, but yep, if you have any thoughts about what you just heard, You can always contact us. Send an email to Joe at Joe DeMare, DEMARE, FOR, agreenfuture.org. Joe at Joe DeMare for agreenfuture.org. Or you can send a text or give a call, 419-973-5841. Okay, and now it's time to hear from our wonderful advertisers and patrons. For Green Future is brought to you by the Wood County Park District. Imagine a place where nature meets adventure, where you can climb, paddle, fish, and explore. That place, it's right here in Wood County. The Wood County Park District is here to protect, preserve, and inspire. We conserve natural and cultural treasures so you can enjoy the outdoors like never before. By maintaining green spaces, providing fun programs, restoring wildlife habitats, and leading outdoor adventures. Want to connect with nature? Try your hand at archery, bouldering, geocaching, paddling, rappelling, and more. Whether you're seeking experience or a peaceful retreat, our parks are open every day from 8 a.m. to 30 minutes past sunset all year round. Come explore, get outside, experience nature. Your parks, your adventures waiting for you. Find us online at wcparks.org or follow on Instagram, Facebook, or X, or call 419-353-1897. That's 419-353-1897. The Wood County Park District, preserving nature, creating adventure, and inspiring a greener future. And, of course, we're also brought to you by our wonderful patrons. These are people who've gone to patreon.com, that's Patreon. There they searched for a Green Future, up popped our Patreon page, and now every month a little bit comes out of their account, comes over to us, and that's how we can afford to keep this show on the air. And you can also make a one-time donation on Patreon. You just sign up, put in the amount you want to donate that one time, and then cancel the subscription part so that it comes out right away, and then you won't be repeatedly billed for it. Or you could sign up, keep it monthly, and just put the amount you can afford every month. And we are extremely grateful, and we just want to say thank you to our patrons. All right, now it's time to say thanks to Rebecca because it's time for her part of the show.
Thanks. Thank me in advance.
Yes.
Okay. I got to live up to it. So, by special listener request, listener/Facebook request, today we have purslane, which I kind of wanted to do because I thought it might be the same thing as sour clover. It's not.
Nope.
Not hardly. But now I know. And the whole time I'm researching this, I'm thinking, that flower looks and sounds very, very familiar. I know I have seen it around. I can't think where, but I know I've seen it. So anyway, purslane has a plant with fleshy oval leaves because it is a succulent, which is a plant which has usually fleshy leaves and retains more water than average, like a aloe plant, if you've ever just got a leaf off of one of them to try and fix your sunburn or whatever. I did that when I was living in Tampico, Mexico for 3 months. You couldn't really... It was hard to get stuff, just because of the language barrier at the drugstore. So, but it was easy to go outside in my driveway and cut open a aloe leaf. And I got a lot of sunburns there because sunscreen is not a huge thing in Mexico. Most people don't need it. And Mexicans will giggle at you if you look like a lobster, quote unquote. Or I think they said a shrimp. Yeah, they said I look like a shrimp. Tampico's a port city. They know their seafood. They do a good stuffed crab there. So yeah, it has small yellow flowers. It is edible and also nutritious, being full of omega-3 fatty acids, vitamins, and antioxidants. Can be eaten raw or cooked like spinach. And scientific name is Portulaca oleracea. In the purslane family, which I think is said it's Portulaceae instead of Portulaca. It sounds the same. So it's the purslane of the purslane family. The leaves are glossy with red margins, and it grows in a low-growing, spreading mat. With the flowers are tiny and 5-petaled, as well as being yellow. and it has tiny glossy black seeds, which I have never seen. I'm not sure where they hang out exactly. I'd like to find out someday. So yeah, if you eat them in excess, though, they have oxalic acids which can hurt your kidneys. So when you get tired of purslane, if you've been eating a lot, stop. And also, if your kidneys are known to be delicate. Plus, you should really have an expert help you find out whether it's really purslane. So, yeah, purslane has a fair amount of benefits, ecologically speaking. It performs soil protection, nutrient cycling and accumulation, and support for other plants. And how it does this is the dense matting that it does kind of shades the soil and makes it retain moisture. Also, it suppresses weeds in the soil, and it has a deep taproot, which brings up nutrients from lower soil levels. And then when the purslane dies, it releases them, and other plants can have them. A taproot, by the way, being a large central dominant root from which other roots spread or sprout. So I want to just be absolutely clear on that. It provides habitat for many insects, including pollinators. It has a robust root system, which helps prevent erosion eaten by birds, mice, insects, larvae. That's the upper part of the plant, I believe. And it's good at colonizing bare or salty soils, meaning it's kind of the scab that forms on the earth when something bad has happened in a lot of ways. People think it's probably native to North Africa and the Middle East and the Indian subcontinent originally, but it's naturalized in many areas. Naturalized meaning we give up on trying to keep it out. It's been there forever anyway. It's not where it comes from, but whatever. Yeah, we're going to let it stay. So, yeah, however, it can be invasive in many regions, including Australia and the southwest U.S., because right away when I heard grows in dense mats, I thought, okay, yeah, that's not just something it does out of the goodness of its heart. That, as we know from last week's thing on clover, I think that it's a way of brawling essentially with other plants. You know, the dense mat keeps other plants from growing underneath it because it blocks out the sun, sucks up all the water with its big old taproot and the nutrients. And it's a fast grower too. So it does sometimes in some areas have the effect of reducing native plant diversity, and that affects the native pollinators and wildlife. Also, I mentioned it reroots itself, so it's you got to actually kill it with fire, literally. That people do that, like they do fire weeding. And so it's till resistant. One odd little disadvantage is that it can accumulate heavy metals because that root that's so good at bringing up minerals from lower levels, mineral nutrients, also can bring up heavy metals. So you want to know what's under your soil, probably, ideally, before you decide if eating purslane and letting plants and animals eat it is for you. Because, it can feed the insects, and the birds eat the insects, and something eats the birds, and pretty soon something is dropping dead from all the poison, from all the heavy metals. Threats to it would, again, as with clover, include other plants that are denser and faster growing. So it's not really safe. We don't really know who's going to win in an all-out brawl with, like, all the invasive species of the world. And, it also has a problem with excessive shade and humidity, tends to make it rot. Not so much the shade, but we're living in an increasingly sauna-like planet, so that might be bad news. Interestingly, zinger fact here, it's used in traditional medicines across many cultures, including China, India, other places. It's good for fevers, digestive-related problems, skin issues. They're looking into it being a cure for cancer, actually. It does a lot of good stuff for your body. It's also an antiseptic, and it kills internal worms, making it a vermifuge. New word for us there. Good for arthritis, burns, and headaches, too, according to traditional medicine. So it's a plant with a lot going for it. It's just you got to make wise choices. And the more information you have, the better.
Yeah, that'd be the oxalic acid, which is essentially like aspirin, right?
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, because willow plants. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have
Yeah.
oxalic acid. That's why. Okay. I just remembered.
I have eaten a fair bit of purslane over the years, or as my farmer friends call it, pusley, because they really
Yeah,
don't like it.
They don't like it.
All right. Well, thank you for that,
You're welcome.
Rebecca. Okay, on to ecological news. And our first story, very closely related to our interview. This is from an email from Earth Justice. Trump's EPA trying to gut a life-saving rule that cleans up our air. And basically, there's something called the Mercury and Air Toxic Standards, which have reduced the amount of mercury coming out of coal plants by about 85% in the 10 years or so it's been in effect, saving Americans like $300 million a year in healthcare costs, because putting mercury in the air causes all kinds of health effects like high blood pressure, mental retardation, birth defects, and low IQs, interestingly. And it bioaccumulates to the way Rebecca was just describing. Heavy metals bioaccumulate, so it hurts the things on the top of the food chain like us more than on the bottom. But basically, Trump is saying, okay, let's get rid of mercury standards. Let's just poison some people. And the public comment period's open right now. So if you go to earthjustice.org, you can find a link to how you can put a comment in like, please don't poison me with mercury. You know, that's might be something that you might want to say, because the decision is in the process right now, and if they goes unchallenged, they'll just go ahead and do it. Next story. Flint. I've got to follow that up with some fairly positive news. Since the Flint lead poisoning scandal happened way back in 2014, there have been various efforts to try to address the problem, including the Biden administration in particular put a lot of money into it. And they just came out with a report. Basically, they have reached the end of the part of the project that was replacing the lines in the homes. And they have replaced the lead pipes in 11,000 homes, or 11,000 structures, and that's 28,000 families and households that are now protected from lead. That is about, they fixed 11,000, 4,000 are unfixed, and those were either houses that were vacant or people who did their own research and decided lead is not a problem and actually refused to allow them to come in and change their lead pipes. So
Isn't it also true that that sounds like they've moved beyond the stage of putting those little adapters on the taps or whatever?
yeah, they've replaced
Okay.
the pipes, and so now they can drink the tap water directly without getting lead
Hot
poisoning.
diggity.
And back, at the height of the problem, over 100,000 people were exposed to deadly levels of lead, and there were some fatalities amongst children. But they're also almost done replacing all the service lines, the lines carrying the water under the streets, in addition to replacing the lines that are in the house. That should all be finished by the end of this year. So this is good news. And so once again, you can drink the water in Flint, Michigan. And so that was both.
It only took them 11 years. Well, I guess they had a lot of pipe to replace. But
Yeah, 11,000
still,
pipes is a lot of pipes. But
on the other hand, look at how fast they put up alligator Alcatraz. People are,
Yeah.
they can do things fast when they want to. Of course, they did a shoddy job, I heard. But,
at Alligator, Alcatraz, yeah. So this came from a story on NBC News that was published on July 2nd. So the project is done. So and I really feel bad about those 4,000 households that are left. But that's the thing. You can't force people to accept reality. We have this ability to just completely ignore it. So, all right, next story. This we're going off to New Zealand because they elected a conservative government there, which is on board with the whole let's attack the environment thing. And there's big controversy there because they're rewriting something called the Resource Management Act, or the RMA, that used to protect wetlands in New Zealand. But the title of this story is Farmers Hail End of Unworkable RMA. Greens say changes dismantle protections. And this is a website called RNZ. And this was actually first published on May 30th. And essentially, the conservative government says, we're rebalancing towards industry and agriculture, which basically just means they're going to allow all the wetlands in New Zealand to get destroyed. They're opening it up to grazing by cattle, also to resource extraction, that is mining, and basically anything they want. And quarrying, mining, and they're leaving all the environmental decisions up to local councils instead of having a federal policy. And so that, of course, as we know here in Ohio all too well, you just have to influence one or two local officials that you can do all kinds of nasty environmental stuff. So that's too bad what's going on down there in New Zealand. The policy was called Te Man o Te Wai. That's a Maori word. It basically means protecting wetlands, and that's no longer the policy. Next story, renew economy, and so we're going to try to balance that a little bit. This story is also from down under, from Tasmania specifically, and this story was on July 10th. Wind farm protection tech a success with no new eagle death and barely a dent in generation. And so what happened is there's 2 wind farms down there in Tasmania, and they hired a U.S. company, actually, that has, it's called Boulder Imaging is the company, and they have a product called IdentFlight. And it uses cameras and artificial intelligence to just constantly monitor the skies around wind turbines. And when they see an eagle or some other kind of endangered bird and identify it, they go, oh, that's an eagle. They'll actually shut down the wind turbine near the eagle.
Excellent.
Yes. And it turns out that doing this approach cost the wind farms less than 1% of generation. So you're not constantly turning off wind turbines. You're only doing it when the eagles get too close. And since they've installed this, one of the farms installed a year and a half ago, they've got 0 eagle deaths since then. And another farm did it 1 year ago, and they also, in that year, 0 eagle deaths. Not to say that eagles are these, Cuisinarts. Or that wind turbines don't kill tons of eagles even without this protection. Wind turbines, on average, kill about 1 bird per turbine per year. That's birds of all kinds.
I guess birds are, by and large, they have some survival skills.
Yeah, they know about flying around stuff.
They survive by judging the air currents and what they're going to do, and they don't like these air currents. They stay out of them.
Yeah. So cats, power lines, windows on buildings, all these things kill literally 10 times as many as wind turbines. But now there's technology that even that little tiny percentage can be avoided. So that's good news. Another piece of good news, pvmagazine.com, June 23rd, China hits 1 terawatt solar milestone. China has installed a terawatt of solar power that's equal to 1,000 nuclear plants. And they installed 92 gigawatts just in May, which is a 57 increase over May of last year. And the Chinese National Energy Administration made this announcement that the total power capacity in all of China is 3.61 terawatts. That's up 18.8%. Unfortunately, a lot of that is coal power, but solar is, just solar is about a third of all the power capacity in China today. They were only 1 gigawatt in 2010. That's roughly the equivalent of 1 nuclear power plant in terms of solar power. By 2013, they were up to 10 gigawatts. 2017, 100 gigawatts. And here we are in 2025, 1,000 gigawatts of solar power. And so that's just incredible. Next story. 7-Eleven, July 11th, in PV Magazine again. Solar becomes EU's largest power source in June. And what happened is for many decades now, nuclear has been the largest single source of power in the EU because of France, because France has like 86% of its electricity from nukes. But what happened in June is, for the very first time in history, solar outproduced nuclear in the EU. It produced 22.1% of electricity. Actually, nukes only provided 21.8, and then wind provided another 15.8. So together, wind and solar were at 37.9%, while nukes were only 21.8. It went up solar went up 22% in 1 year, and that's why it was able to beat out nuclear. Record solar generation in 13 out of the 27 EU countries, because they understand, over in the EU, they understand solar is the answer in terms of keeping a technological society going while reducing greenhouse gases. So I was very heartened by that. And what's happened after solar passed coal use plummeted. And after solar passed gas, gas use plummeted. And so now that solar has passed nuclear, I expect the same thing to happen. All right. Well, we're just about out of time. One last story, Forest Ecology and Management, the volume 594. And essentially they found that if you're managing a forest, letting the oldest, healthiest trees stay alive actually benefits the entire forest. Don't cut down the best trees. It's taken them 10 years of research to get this. Interestingly, that's been the Menominee forest management process for the past 100 years, the Menominee Indian Reservation. Leave the best, take the rest. So that's it. That's it for this show. Thank you so much for listening. This is Joe DeMare.
And Rebecca Wood.
We are signing off.
I don't want no oil, a spoil in my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things a creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes!